Welcome back, and it's time to actually get into it. One thing the last few weeks have taught me is that although I've been kind of working up to this, prepping little art projects here and there, having actual client work come through and completing that made me realize that when I'm doing something for a friend and kind of a half personal project, instead of just waiting for the perfect time, I need to give it a deadline, treat it like client work, and just dive in. So that's what we're going to start today. I'm going to share as much as I can with you on this book project. We are going to go through the process, how I'm going from my sketches and storyboards all the way into the paintings, and eventually I'll show you the whole layout and everything. But enough practicing, enough talking. Let's do it. All right, starting with how I'd break down the script, I kind of went through on a printed version and just broke everything down line by line. Some lines I would want to include in one drawing, and others would want to be their own specific or maybe multiple drawings. So I'm just using Mary Had a Little Lamb here as a sample, and went through Mary Had a Little Lamb whose fleece was white as snow. That's easy to show in one drawing, one establishing shot. And so that's drawing number one. And I wanted her to be more of a farm girl instead of kind of the fancy dress girl who somehow has a sheep in typical storybooks. So here, just on that same script sheet, I'm roughing out just what's in my mind, some thumbnail sketches, pretty rough, but kind of the gesture of what I'm seeing for each of these lines. And this can obviously explode onto several pages, depending on the size of the script. But this was kind of my starting point. In the book we're doing, it's a family going for a walk in their favorite park, and so that's our starting point. So this is a quick example of what I would then blow up either on a transparency or on a light box to do a more detailed drawing and work out the perspective and proportions of what the final drawing is going to look like. In my case today, we take that and put that on a transparency, and we're blowing that up onto watercolor paper, and a few little issues there, and I'll show you how I worked through those. Okay, I'm probably one of the last people in the world to actually buy an overhead projector, but it is going to be useful for this. And I just want to show you that originally when I put the drawing on here, because the drawing is relatively big, when I put it up on the wall, it was too large. It would have filled up the whole paper and really should have bled over. To get a closer focal length, I had to bring the stock up. So I undid the screws, and although this would wiggle if I moved it, I bumped this up to the top to give me just a couple more inches, and that made it so now my drawing and then now transfers on a good size onto this paper in focus, and you can see my hand there. So it's going to be nice and big. I'll be able to get a lot of detail in there. So I'm going to just lightly trace this out, and then I'll bring it back over to the drawing table and paint it there. Because I'm going to be keeping the paints very wet, almost watercolor-ish. Painting it vertically would be pretty difficult to manage with gravity. I'm going to do it very lightly, so I just have indications of where everybody is. So the paints make the majority of the lines, and then I'll come back and line it once it's finished. I'd say the projector to the wall is probably 3.5 feet, but the size is right for the paper. I hope this will turn out. One thing I didn't catch until I was done drawing is I need a little more tape on the transparencies, because with the hot light and not much adhesion, by the time I finished the drawing, this one and that one had curled up, kind of distorting the corners. Now, it wasn't a huge deal, but I definitely want to make sure I'm taping those down better for future drawings. So with the drawing taped down here, I'm going to start by just putting water across the sky and not hitting those skylights. And the reason I'm doing that is a watercolor technique to really minimize the brush strokes and keep that sky as soft as I can. I do end up kind of overworking it and getting some brush strokes in there, but I wanted this to be really subtle and easy to work with. And since I'm doing so much of this with watercolor techniques, you may wonder, why aren't I just using watercolors? Well, it's a familiarity thing. I've been using these basic acrylic paints basically forever, and so I know exactly how they're going to react and how much water to put in, how much to leave out to achieve the right amount of density in the color and everything. And because I wanted to jump into this, I didn't want to take the time to learn a whole new medium and just work with one I'm familiar with and have had good results with in the past. And I want to do these big because I want to be able to add detail, do some of the features and things the way I'd like them to be, and I just don't have the dexterity to do everything tiny. So maybe cheating by doing it big, but I think this is how most people would do a project like this. So after I had it traced on the watercolor paper, I did erase some lines just to simplify the sky. Didn't need the cloud marks and things like that. But then got into the sky, started laying in the blue, put tape down to make sure I had a level horizon, and then did the upper part of the sky. Then I removed the tape, let the sky dry a little bit, and then put it above the horizon line so then I could do the water and bring that down. And in that case, I actually did have one little brush stroke go over the tape on the right-hand side of the painting, and had to blend that back in with water and a little extra blue to make it not feel like a mistake and blend back into the background, which is the good thing about using a more, very light water. I'm using acrylic, but, on watercolor paper, using that kind of method. The good thing with modern technology is you can always kind of tweak some things afterwards in Photoshop once this thing is finalized. I don't want to rely on that, but I know in some places I'm going to have to. In one case, there was a little bit of dirt or grime that I got on the watercolor paper. I tried to scrape that off beforehand, and it just gave that section a different texture. And so that's going to have to be Photoshop to fix up. And then from there, I just worked forward, laying in the sand, laying in the tree, spent a lot of time on the tree. It started out very light, and then gradually I worked it darker and darker and darker. Because like we did on that other test a couple weeks ago, I wanted to leave those highlights on the sun side and then work back into the shadows as we progressed forward in the painting. Hopefully that pays off in the finished version, but I'm liking how it's going so far. Then worked in the walkway and the street lamps and things like that. Again, just kind of progressing forward. at the end of this week, I got to the point where I'm finally putting clothes on the people. And so that's going in. But like I said, I'll finish those characters up in next week's and hopefully get into the next section that I can actually show you. But wanted to share this, and I'll show you the finale of this piece, hopefully coming next week, and then the start of the next one, and we'll kind of see how we build this together. But mainly, I hope that if you've had a big project sitting on the back burner that you've been afraid to get started, I hope this gives you the confidence to just dive right in, get to it. You can do it. Now that I'm into it, I am really enjoying it and having a lot of fun and remembering how much I do love painting. So this is going to be a fun project. I'm glad you're here with me. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Happy painting, and I'll see you in the next one.